The financial system is failing. We look at this all around the world. We'll look at the statistics and we'll show you exactly why this is the case. When you have the corruption of the political system and the economic system, increasing poverty and unemployment globally. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's look at this information right here. This chart is from Bloomberg, this data, and it's showing you over the next 5 years the probability of default. And this right here looks like Venezuela is going to be the next one to default with an 83% probability. And we have Ukraine not too far behind there. We saw what happened with Argentina. Essentially what they do is they give them interest rates, they give them terms which are impossible to pay back. They use currency wars in order to bankrupt nations so that they can get in and take all of their assets. It's been done so many times before. If you read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, you'll know just what I'm talking about. So the reason I mention this right here is not necessarily to talk about Venezuela, but to talk about all the different countries around the world that are experiencing pain right now. It isn't just the US, though we do focus on that quite a bit. We need to realize that this is a global phenomenon. We need to see the defaults that occur in the developing nations, and then we can better predict what's going to happen in the so-called developed world. So let's look into this further. Let's get into the real data. This right here is out of the Telegraph and actually tells some truth, which is quite refreshing here. It said the first reason to worry, it's talking about the current economic situation, it's the curiously juxtaposed state of asset prices with generally buoyant equities but falling sovereign bond yields and commodity prices. So he's saying there's a dislocation here that's occurring, something that I've talked about often. I always show you the charts where despite the bonds heading in the opposite direction as the stocks, it's not supposed to happen like this in general. So let's look at this further on, what he did say, and they said they cannot both be right. High equity prices are, or at least should be, indicative of investor confidence and optimism. Low bond yields and falling commodity price points to the very reverse. And so he goes on and essentially says what they're doing right here is the result of central bank money printing. That's his quote right there. I completely agree, because when you do this, you basically throw off everything in the economy. There's no reality anymore. It can't exist like this. But of course, that's what they're doing. I'm not going to cover that specifically in today's video. You hear me run on about that all the time. You can look into the article for yourself. There's some good information in here. Talks about, the sovereign defaults and buying out the debts of the different nations. This is basically 5 different reasons why we're headed for a crash. Pretty good information overall. So let's move on. This right here is the billionaire Zell. You may have heard his quotes before. Has a lot of good things to say on average here. And he said this. Well, first, the interviewer said this: will the president be able to work with Republican-controlled Congress to actually move the needle on jobs? And of course, just a senseless question. He said this: isn't the question whether the president wants to work with anybody to create anything? And what I've been seeing here is that the Emperor of the United States, Lord Obama, what he said is that he wants to take, quote, action on these things, and, Congress just won't act, continuously using this word. And essentially what he said is that if they're not going to do that, then I'm just going to have to take action. That's just the way it is. But really what's happening here is you're having this empire forming. You're having a dictator who's basically saying, if the Congress isn't going to do their jobs, then I will. But this is what the Congress is for. They're supposed to be the voice of the people. So if they don't want to do something, that's usually a sign that the rest of the country doesn't. But of course, he's just taken the action into his own hands. Let's get into this right away, how this affects real people in their daily lives. One of those things I talked about just recently was Social Security, and although I don't necessarily agree with this graph, just look at the direction it's heading. This is socialsecurity.gov. Once again, I always bring you the information directly from the sources. Right here, they're showing that it's positive, which isn't exactly true, but they are at least showing that the graph is heading in the right direction, and it is going significantly downward. We're looking at trillions upon trillions of dollars, in fact, going bankrupt, and I believe the statistic was 2024 that it will be completely bankrupt, even by the government numbers. That's pretty amazing to show you, but of course, they can have what they have been quoted saying of reforms, and what that's going to mean. If they actually do cut back on the amount that they're giving out, you're going to have civil unrest and riots. This is something that cannot be avoided because the people are relying on this. You have about 100 million people in the US on some sort of welfare. This is not something to be joking about. This is not some sort of fear-mongering. This is reality. Look at this chart. It really shows you right from the government's own websites, not from what they call conspiracy theorists here. This is the government's website, so you can look at this for yourself and judge for yourself. What do you think is going to happen when the people don't get their checks? There's going to be big problems. Look at this right here out of the Wall Street Journal, and this connects in with my previous article here, but essentially saying that the American middle class has absorbed a steep increase in the cost of healthcare and other necessities as the incomes have stagnated over the past half decade. But the real truth is that they've been stagnating for decades right now. But let's look at this here. They said healthcare spending by middle income Americans rose 24% between 2007 and 2013, driven by an even larger rise in the cost of buying health insurance. And this according to the Wall Street Journal and the BLS. So we'll get into that information right away. I pulled up the chart itself and essentially showing you different prices of different items, and the ones that are very important to look at are these at the bottom in the dark blue. It says this, so you're looking at education costs, healthcare, rental homes, health insurance, and then other things that are becoming more and more of essentials to many people, the cell phones and home internet, all increasing significantly in just the past few years. And then you look at what has actually decreased, and there isn't too much happening here. Your residential phone line, which really is a dying trend. We see that more people are going to their mobile phones, and then other things, simple things like household textiles, alcohol, and these sort of things that really aren't as significant and as important as healthcare and education. So of course the real cost of living has been increasing significantly using the BLS own statistics. Once again, we don't have to use the alternative sources if we don't want to. We do, of course. It is good to look at that, but let's use their own numbers and show them that they are headed for a big decline. We can show this to people who are deniers, denying the real truth. In my book, I often resort to showing this diagram here, and essentially is the following is the visual representation of the loss in value of a $100 bill over time. We look at it, these are just approximates, but trying to show you in 1900 you get a car, 1950 you get a motorcycle, in 2000 you can get nothing but a bus pass. It's still the same $100 bill. There's nothing different about it except for the fact that it buys you less over time. And that goes to show you the value of paper money. When you hold on to paper or some sort of US dollar currency asset, something like this, you're having something that is devaluing year over year. If your grandparents saved up a whole bunch of money and they worked really hard to save up a whole $20 and they kept it in their backyard for all these years, and then it was your time to get that money and you had it, well, it wouldn't exactly buy you a lot, but back in their generation, it was a significant amount of money. So we need to realize the truth that, look, we're already in a deep crisis as it is, and it seems like they're going ahead and going to either sort of reform the entitlement packages, or they're going to do a bail-in strategy. They're going to increase taxation like they have done in in most countries around the world, but clearly evident in France, where they have tax rates of both 75% and 100% on these certain individuals' wealth. We're looking at this and have to realize, where is the positivity here? And it is certainly not in either the financial or the political sectors, I will assure you. And then I want to end off with this, because we want to know why this is the case, why exactly this is occurring. We should have some sort of semblance of free market. We should be able to put our money in the stock market and have it rise, have it make us some income over the years. We want to put our money in, grow the economy. Everyone wants to have a strong workforce, and everyone wants to be able to invest in some sort of way when they can. But the disposable income has been declining over the past few years. We see this now. I showed you the charts from the BLS, and this is undoubtable. Now let's look at one of these individuals who is responsible, in part responsible for all this wrongdoing, all of the corruption of the political and the financial sectors. This is from his book Memoirs. You may know what I'm talking about already, and that is Rockefeller's book here. This is a quote directly from it. I believe it's page 405, when he said, "Some even believe that we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it." Here he is admitting what he's doing specifically, and then we have to pretend that this isn't the reality of the case. They get together and they act in secret behind closed doors. We're not allowed to know about these things. They sign treaties without us. We have officials in government meeting with big business behind closed doors, breaking all sorts of laws. And this is really showing you who's behind this curtain. What are they doing behind there? When we see after all these meetings like the Bilderberg and the G20, it's always worse after it all, and then somehow, some way, the wealth of these mega rich elite continues to increase. Their control over the system continues to increase. And that's because the system itself is built upon individuals like Rockefeller, like the Rothschilds, like the royalty from various countries around the world. They are the ones making the decisions. That's why the government structure is a failure, because they're not even able to control it on their own. Look at Europe, controlled by a set of technocrats, and then there's even people even higher than that. So anyway, that's enough for this video. I hope that you found it informative. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that a lot. And look forward to some new types of videos I'm planning on doing, based on the feedback I got. Planning on doing a bunch of simple videos just to have to rather explain to people, simple things like, what is a bond? What is a stock? How does the stock market work? Things like this. Really short videos, really concise videos, and I'm hoping to do those in the near future, and adding it to the playlist for the Money GPS e-course. And it'll be a simple way for your, if you're not aware of how it works, or perhaps to share with your friends and family, and then when they see that video, hopefully they'll click on some other ones which show the real detail of the situation. That's what I'm hoping for with that. I hope that you'll enjoy those as well. And of course, don't forget to become an insider. There's now over 1,200 insiders now. This is really great news for us, and I hope that you'll get on there if you're not already. It's totally free. It's available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.